I'm getting the high sign is the difference between a gift and a present. Anyone know the difference between a gift and a present? Okay, in your attic or the closet or tucked in the garage, the box of something that someone gave you 10 years ago, you don't want to throw it out, but they gave it to you, and that was a present. Okay, it's a present. It's a nice thought, okay? But a gift is something that you need right when you need it. And our next presenter is going to give us a gift. I'm not going to talk about the title of his session or what he's going to talk about, but it's going to be moving for us all. Paul Dreyer is from Avid for Adventure out of Colorado. And don't move, you know the drill. This is Paul all the way from Colorado with our gift. Yay! Bring our gift, man.
Thank you, Jim. Hey, before I begin, we've been sitting for a long time, so everybody just go ahead and stand up. I want to do a quick waking up your brain exercise. Bear with me here, and we can get the first slide up on the screen here. Bear with me. Go ahead and raise your right or left hand above you, and look at that hand. Look at your fingers there. I want you to rotate your hand in a clockwise direction. And just keep looking at your hand, keep moving it in clockwise, keep looking at your hand, and lower your hand down below to your waist here. Keep looking at your hand though. And now which direction is it rotating? All right, just wakes up your brain. Okay, before you sit down, everyone in the back, let's do one more. Come on, we're only here for another 20 minutes. Come on to the first 2 rows here. Everyone, come on up here. Come on, come on up. So go ahead and sit down and let's start. Let's begin. So one thing, you get to hang out with me for 20 minutes here. And at the end of this 20 minutes, I want you to take one thing away. Just one learning nugget, one new thing, one old thing that you're thinking about differently, but just one thing. I'm going to throw a whole bunch of things at you, right? You should expect a lot of things to come at you, at times a little quickly, times superficially. But your expectation, my hope and your goal is just one thing. So don't worry about learning a lot. Just worry about learning one thing or taking one thing away with you, all right? Before I dive in, I want us to reflect on a time. Maybe think about a recent time when you were leading something. You were teaching a class. You were presenting to a bunch of folks. But one time that you were leading something and it was either going super well, right? You were crushing it, or maybe you were flailing a little bit. It was not going according to plan. So either time it's going really well according to your plan or not. Bear with me here. I spent the first 36 hours or so of the conference asking this question to some of you, and I have some thoughts here. I have some reflections in my bowl. Let me move this here. And you all are experiential educators. You know what comes next, right? So you ask a question, you reflect on it, and then you read some things out loud, right? So instead of that, let's burn those thoughts away. This is the title of my workshop. I will put this here. I don't want to get in too much trouble. The title of my workshop is How to Care Less. I obviously don't care about things that much, right? We're going to spend some time talking about stress injuries and talking about how to care less. I want to make sure that you understand that this is not a presentation about not caring, right? I'm not saying don't care. There is so much for us to care about. Now more than ever, we have to care about our students. We have to care about our parents and the families that we work with. There are incredible political and physical wars happening in this country and around the world that we have to care deeply about. There are human and environmental injustices that obviously we have to care about. So I'm not saying that we should not care, but we don't need a workshop. We all, this Children in Nature network tribe that we're a part of. We don't need a workshop about how to care. We're in this caring profession. I believe, however, that sometimes we hold on to things really tightly as these caring professionals. So we do, when it's bringing negative stress and potential stress injuries into our lives, we do need a time to stop and reflect about how to care less. So that's what we're going to talk about. But before we get to the how to care less, let's talk about the why. And you've all seen statistics like this. Recent study, 50% of Americans say right now that they have negative stress impacting their lives on a daily basis. Those numbers get even worse when we talk about you all, when we talk about the educator population. Over potentially at least 60% of our teachers, our educators, our administrators have daily negative stress in their lives, right? So it's happened a lot. That's part of the why, but let's talk, bear with me here. I'm going to do a little bit of neuroscience, right? A little bit of neurobiology, biology, brain science here, to further deepen and understand the why. Because we've heard about the stress numbers, and stress does a lot of things to us, but let's talk about a couple things that it does to our brain. But before that, first I would like to say that stress does not equal automatically bad and automatically negative things to our brain. There's totally positive stress, right? My guess is all of us have had this emotion where we get those butterflies in our stomach, that anxiousness, that anxiety, that stress, that nervousness, before a game, before an outdoor race, before a presentation that you have. And then my guess is all of you all have also experienced that you rock it in that game. You show up really well in that race, or you nail it in that presentation. Am I nailing it? All right, good. All right, cool. So that stress can be positive. However, that stress can be negative when that stress is not acknowledged, when that stress is continuous and never acted upon. That's the type I'm talking, that's the negative stress, that when we don't act on that, don't acknowledge that stress, it can lead to negative aspects in our brain. Physical aspects to our brain, 3 different things. This continuous negative stress, it actually can lead to a chemical imbalance of the gray and white matter in our brains. It can also lead to the killing of our brain neurons, right? Specifically in the hippocampus. And it can also actually lead to the shrinkage of our brain. So it changes our chemical makeup in our brain, possibly kills brain cells and shrinks our brain. And we've known this brain science for a long time around the trauma. Earlier today in the plenary panel, we talked about the big trauma leading to the big, more significant stress injuries, things like post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, which you've all heard about. We've known that these negative aspects of our brain happen from those big trauma events. However, the most recent research over the last really decade or so is showing the same things can happen to our brain with the smaller stress injuries that grow over time and more consistent, right? So this is our why, and let's get into the how here. There are a lot of models and theories out there. This model, this is something that I call the other model. Yes, I'm taking better name suggestions right after this presentation. Models out there, most models that you find are old, they are established, they're well known, and they are useful. This other model here that I created several years ago, this is new, this is relatively unknown, and honestly, this has been useful for me. I don't know if it's useful for you, but remember, how to care less. I don't mind, right? This is something that I've been using with groups with individuals and would love for you all to try on. So this is one tool for you. Let me explain how this model works, right? So this, for myself, with others, with groups, with individuals, if I'm seeing some stress in my life, other people's lives, I'll start with the x-axis, and I'll ask the question, okay, in this situation that you're in, that you're feeling stressed, maybe it's a class you're teaching, maybe it's a family situation, but in the situation, who do you typically want to please when you're in these situations? Do you typically want to please yourself, or do you typically want to please others? And both of these are good things, right? It's good to please yourself. It is good to please others. So no wrong answers here. But I just ask for folks to select their preference. Typically, who do you want to please more, right? And just put a dot on that x-axis and then a line down that x-axis. Do you typically want to please others more in a situation, or yourself? And then on that y-axis, the second question I ask is what's most important to you in the situation, that class that you're teaching, that job that you have? Is it most important for you to do a lot, do a whole bunch of things, or is it more important, most important, for you to do maybe just a few or one thing incredibly well, like towards that perfect stage? What's most important? Again, throw a dot there, a line across that y-axis, and as you can see, this creates 4 boxes of different shapes. This is a very simple tool, as good models should be. They should be simple, and this is just a self-awareness tool. If you feel like you might be holding stress, you can look at your biggest boxes here. By the way, feel free to take pictures of these slides, or I'll make them available as well, so no worries. But for me, this is my box, right, in the other model, my biggest box. And so if I'm feeling some stress here, I might say, you know what I should do? I should try to concentrate on letting go of pleasing others, not that important, or letting go of doing more for myself. So it's just a quick hit self-awareness tool for what should I maybe lean into of holding on to, or letting go a little bit more in this moment, in this scenario. A little bit more about the how. In another part of my life, I do a lot of teaching of wilderness or remote medicine. For about 2 decades, I've taught austere medicine of wilderness first aid, wilderness first response. Embedded in all of our wilderness first aid curriculum is the principles of psychological first aid, or PFA. So psychological first aid, this is all about preventing stress injuries through 5 main principles that you see on the screen. Unlike the other model, this stuff is based on a ton of research, mostly research coming from combat situations or responses to natural disasters and natural disaster environments. And what stress injuries and psychological first aid is all about is when we have these traumatic events, either as someone who is injured or a responder to that injured situation, if we can create a sense of calm, a sense of safety, a sense of empowerment, connection, and hope, these principles that you see on the screen, that reduces the likelihood of those PTSD and the larger stress responses to show up. This is the goal of psychological first aid. But as I mentioned, the brain science, the negative brain science, not only shows up from the big trauma, but it's from the continued small stressors as well. So again, my theory on this is we can use this well-researched principles of psychological first aid into our lives on the more slower acting, smaller stress responses. So principles of psychological first aid. All right, I'm gonna do something weird. I'm gonna do a little group exercise here. I promise I'm not going to light anything on fire again. I did that. I would say this next group exercise is even more taboo than lighting stuff on fire in a large public situation. This is what we're going to do. And I need everyone's help on this. Like, truly, if you have a laptop open, I need you to close your laptop. I need you to put your pen down. I need you to put your phone away. I need you to put all of those things away. And this is what we're going to do. We are going to sit or hang out together and do nothing. Y'all ready to do nothing? Yeah. Okay, really nothing. Here we go. That was 30 seconds of nothing. My guess is for some of you that felt like 2 or 3 minutes, not 30. We don't do nothing in our culture. I don't know, maybe this would resonate with y'all. Almost always, the first time someone calls me up on the phone, one of the first things they say to me is, Paul, you must be so busy, right? Or I run into someone, or they want to schedule a meeting with me and be like, I know you're so busy. It is this subconscious expectation that gets set in our reality where not only when we say that and when we respond to those things, it's not the underlying emotion or idea behind that is that you should be busy, right? You should be always doing things, right? Think about the last time that you were in line for TSA coming to fly here, the last time you were in line for in a supermarket, last time you were in line for everything, I can almost guarantee vast majority of us pulled out our phones, right, and started doing something on our phones. And it's because it's alluring, but subconsciously it's also because of the social pressures. We need to tell other people that we're constantly busy. We need to tell people that, hey, I'm important because I'm doing something. That is built into our culture. And there's a phrase out there, it's from the Dutch in Europe who really know how to take care of themselves way better than us. And it's a term called Nixon. Raise your hand, I'm curious, anyone heard of this term Nixon before? It's a Dutch term, and it's really a philosophy for the health benefits and decreased stress for doing nothing. Like truly taking time in your day. We just took 30 seconds, but how to care less is so much about every part of your day. Just do nothing for a little while and try to let go of those expectations that other folks have. All right, I'm going to hard pivot here, and I'm going to talk about some math. I know, science and math. Bear with me, my friends. I'm going to talk about a little math. I'm going to get us on the same page on a math term here. Quotient, I know, big word, big math word. It just means one thing over another. Many years ago, I read a book that introduced me to a theory called the happiness quotient. And the happiness quotient in this book 25 years ago or so, it said that perhaps reality over expectations equals happiness. I actually don't love the word happiness, so when I think about this quote-unquote happiness quotient, I often think about this as fulfillment, right? What if reality over expectations equals fulfillment? Not my idea, someone else's idea. But let's play with this idea. Let's think about it. We're coming to the end here. I told you it was going to be a lot. Let's think about how you all are feeling fulfilled with this presentation. How much did I learn? How much am I taking away? Right? So let's look at reality over expectations. Obviously, I set your expectations, right? One thing. So if you are walking away with one learning nugget, then I would posit out there that you are 100% happy with this presentation, all right? Now, let's look at that if I didn't set your expectations, and for whatever reason you're like, you know what I really want out of How to Care Less workshop? I want to take away two things. I want to learn two things. Then the exact same presentation, if you only came away with one, you would be 50% happier, right? Or 50% fulfilled. And obviously the reverse holds true as well. I set your expectations of one thing. If you were walking away with two things, then you are 200% happy, which very happy, right? Full transparency here. I don't love this theory. It's a little bit too simplistic for me. However, it is a nice awareness tool where we're like, maybe I'm holding stress because of expectations, right? And so this holds true with everything I've said today. Use it if it works for you. Don't use it if it doesn't work for you. But just one more thing to think about in terms of expectations, how that plays into our reality. I told you it was going to be a lot. I imagine some of you are saying something like, wow, that was a lot, now what, right? Now what do I do with all that information, Paul? I'm speaking to my experiential education choir now, I know that. But we know that experiential education, total misnomer, right? Because experience is just the beginning of the actual education piece of experiential education. We just had a 15 or so minute experience together, but the now what is reflect, right? Observe what came up for you. Develop those ideas by using them in your practice, testing these ideas, having new experiences with reducing your stress, with leaning into impermanence, with letting go of ideas, and then repeat. And with all of these steps, of course, this has been mentioned. Thank you so much for the constant reminders, Tim, of using our network and using our resources. I would throw out there to you, I would also love to be a resource for you. My information is up on the screen here. It's also in the Schedule, right? So it's all digital, but both my email and my social media links as well. So please do be in touch. I would love to, during the conference and beyond, be a resource for you all. And I will leave you with two final thoughts, because so stress, right? Stress and anxiety, we talked about numbers. It's not going away. My guess is there's many of us are more stressed now than we were a year ago and 2 years ago. For sure, our students and our parents and our families are showing up more stressed right now than they did a year ago and 2 years ago as well. So I'll leave you with two final thoughts to just help with that stress that's going to show up tomorrow and next week when you're back at your offices, at your schools. And I'll return and just reiterate 2 of the 5 psychological first aid principles. And they might be 2 of my most favorite of the psychological first aid principles. And these are the final 2 thoughts that I'll leave you with. Create a sense of calm and maintain a sense of true hope, joy, and wonder. Thank you, my friends.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. Any questions for Paul? How about an observation? Yes, please, and I'll repeat it. Sure.
This is, great question. This is my cat and a good friend of mine's baby. Very recent baby. This baby came just a few months ago.
Well, let's take it to the practical question. So you gave us the assignment to get one thing out of our time with you.
Yeah.
How many of you got one thing out of this? Okay. Now, with your hands up, somebody tell me, just shout it out, the one thing you took away from this. Somebody. Cats got your tongue? Yeah. Care less. All right, that'll work.
Right
Anyone
on.
else?
Awesome. I
One
appreciate
thing.
it, yeah.
Time for self. Nice.
Great.
Anyone else? Focus on happiness. Look at that, Paul. Look what you're doing.
I try.
And for me, it's okay not to be doing something. I want to thank you, my friend. Thank you for your reminder about the gift that you gave us, and way to close out our session. Thank you again.
My pleasure.